Good morning, my fellow yoga travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, live the life we love. It's Friday, so it's the day I usually do a little PowerPoint presentation here. I've been honoring Ram Dass the whole week, and this is another thing that I picked up from him, a little ditty. The higher I go, the more I see. The more I see, the less I know. The less I know, the more I'm free. The more I'm free, the higher I go. The higher I go, the more I see, the more I see, the less I know. The less I know, the more I'm free. The more I'm free, the higher I go. So that's where we are. I had a teacher used to say, Steve Gaskin, the higher you go so high, or the higher you go, you keep getting beyond all differences, uh, because the higher you go, the less difference it all makes. Until you get so high, it makes no difference at all. But you don't individuate at the top of Mount Everest. You eventually have to come back down into the valley, into the field of form. And when you do, then you're connected to the integral path. You balance all the ways. It's the ecumenical perspective of oneness, which for me is symbolized by Raja, Karma, Yana, and Bhakti Yoga, the four main branches of the one thing, which is yoga. There are no four different yogas. There's only one yoga, like one tree, and all the branches stem from it. And that's what you learn from knowledge. And my teacher said you had always had to be a Yana Datta as well as a Karma Datta, a giver of knowledge as well as a giver of action. And so that's why I've always liked the aspects of the artistic way of expressing ourselves, like Saraswati, with music, culture, wealth, spiritual purity. And those are the actions that embody spirit. And the first thing we always say is learn what you're feeling. Emotion is primary, thinking is secondary. And every kid comes in unfiltered at the socialization level, and they learn from their peers around them, but they're already hardwired with these chemicals inside them to show joy and anger and interest and disgust and surprise and sadness and fear and hurt. Right, so you know pain and you know joy. You have to trust your gut because it's telling you what's happened. I learned from Deepak Chopra the idea that the stomach hasn't evolved the cells of self-doubt. It can't abstract itself from the experience and say, I don't want to feel this. If you're feeling it there, you can be pretty sure that's what it is. That's why we say trust your gut, which is the same in a certain way as trusting your heart. Now, if you want to be enlightened, as we say, you got to be American. Like when the students of the Japanese Roshi imported all the Japanese wood and incense and calligraphy materials to try to make him feel at home, and he was so touched by it. But in the end, he said, "You have to be American if you want to be enlightened, not just warming your hands at some other culture's fire." So we have to learn how to balance high tech and high touch. And I always tell the story for those who are Star Wars fans. In the first movie, when Luke does his run into the Death Star, it's a small flaw in their design where you can get a torpedo in there and it'll blow up the garbage chute and the whole Death Star will get blown up. So he goes out on his major run and he hears his master say, use the force, use the force. And at first he doesn't know if he's like hearing it correctly. And when he turns off the force, the tracking device for like shooting, NASA goes berserk and he says, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then he does use the force and make the final kill on the Death Star. But the thing that he doesn't do, even though he turns off the tracking device, he doesn't turn off the engine to his jet. So you have to learn to balance intuition with technology, and that's high tech with high touch. Now, oh, you got to poke fun at your sacred cow. Here's me and William. Hi, William. How are you? You can't take yourself too seriously in this path. I always tell people this is a workshop. It's not a workout. I'm not there to make people sweat. I make people learn about yoga and challenge, the not so sattvic sides of yourself. And anybody who doesn't get this, they probably wouldn't sign up for our yoga vacation, even though it looks like here we're trying to appeal to the fans of Black Sabbath who party hardy. No, we're not doing that. We're just spoofing ourselves. Make fun of yourself. Don't you get it? Oh boy. And one of my teachers used to say, I don't teach therapeutics, I teach the correct posture. You've got to stick to what you know. Just helping people align themselves properly can heal a lot of maladies. Now, I love this statement from Nisargadatta Maharaj. If you imagine yourself as separate from the world will appear as separate from you, and you will experience desire and fear. If you do not see the world, I do not see the world as separate from me, and so there's nothing for me to desire or fear. Yeah, so here you see freedom is from the self, not for the self. You subtract things, you don't have to add anything. That's what Meister Eckhart said. You don't get to God as a process of addition, but subtraction. All right, so once you're here, then we understand we have to open up. The reduction of alien societies to the status of inferior species, not fully human, who can be degraded without conscience. This is what we've done with our white pigmentation and colonialization over the last couple of hundred years. So we call it pseudo-speciation, the inability to recognize what's human in the other, and therefore bond to our common humanity. And that's the job of yoga, to experience the union. So in mythology, you have an artful arrangement of lies, totally false on the outside, but totally true on the inside. So here's an example of Perseus with the head of Medusa. What's that look that can turn you into stone? It's a great image from the Greek tradition. So don't just because there isn't a one-to-one correspondence to what we think of as what's out there in reality doesn't mean that it isn't true. False on the outside, true on the inside. So you have to have metaphor, symbol. And then get over the fact that your parent is not your mentor, never meant to be your mentor. They're a high priest and high priestess from another temple. But your mentor and you're in competition with each other. Not competition like a tennis match where somebody's on the other side and you have to defeat them. Somebody wins, somebody loses. You're both petitioning the same God. Competition with petitioning the same deity. They recognize equal fervor in you, and you're both turned in the same direction. So let go of thinking your parents should have been different than the way they were in terms of their own religious observance, and they're not going to crimp your style. And then initiation. We have to take the leap of faith. It happens in transition states when there's a breakthrough or an eruption of the status quo. Then the soul is seen as like an outcast, like abandoned, orphaned, exiled. So watch out for the eruption into your daily life of the unwanted, the unexpected. But more important, look in your past life already. Look at the things that happened that were unwanted and unexpected. Those were initiation you didn't realize. Nobody taught you how to look at that as a ritual initiation, but you had many of them. So once you take that leap of faith and separate yourself from what you know, you're on the vision quest. You have to face the tests, the trials, the triumphs, or the failures. But you have to realize who alone can carry their fate. Who can carry their fate alone? Impossible. You have to have medicine allies, whether it's the form of your power animals or your ancestral spirits. So what do you appeal to get strength? And when you do it, you come back and reincorporate. You bring your gifts, the boons of the gods. You reinvest what you got on your path because you're committed to the collective. Why? Because we're biosocial beings. You do things for yourself and you also do things in community. And then if you do that, as I like to say, ooh, look at me with the short hair. Leave your karma at the door when you enter. I always say the teacher that guarantees the least disappoints the least. And so at the end of this talk, just like a yoga class, pick up your karma at the door on your way out and hope that you got fortified in some way to handle what you have to and also the stuff that only you can handle. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Coming up in 2 weeks in May, we'll have the next two classes for the Good Vibrations Yoga on the 11th and the 18th. I hope you'll join us for the Magic on the Horizon and Yoga as Spiritual Resurrection.